blessed unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. Further evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning. It's Thursday morning and welcome to the Self-Love Show. For those viewers that are new here, my name is Dawn Light and my beautiful co-host here is Trish Wright. This way. And we are so excited to have this show weekly. Thank you for tuning in with us. We're so grateful. And in case you don't know, we have a YouTube channel and we're on all the basically platforms for the podcast. So Spotify, Apple, all the great platforms. So this is a great thing. You can go and share episodes of previous, we've got more than 2 years worth of content. And it's so good to explore self-love in all the variant ways and conversations we can support greater capacity to hold greater self-love in our lives and with our beloveds. And so there's lots of juicy topics there in those platforms. So without further ado, we have an amazing guest today. I'm so grateful to have her. She is such an expert in her field, and I'm going to read her beautiful bio right now. So in this episode today, Shayna will give a brief introduction of the internal family systems framework, then guide us through a somatic exercise where you will get to witness the process of communicating with parts in the body and through expressive art. Yes. And to finish up, she will show us how to make a diagram of the parts that were present in the session and map their relationship within the system. Shayna Cass is an artist, designer, educator, and somatic healer focusing on the intersection between relational trauma and neurodivergence. The central theme of her work is connection and connection to self, connection to spirit, connection to nature, and connection to others. As someone who's struggled with relationships and a fractured sense of self all of her life, Shayna is passionate about helping people to connect deeply to themselves so they can feel safe connecting deeply with others. She uses a multidisciplinary mind-body approach rooted in somatic internal family systems therapy and expressive arts to guide her clients outside of the neurotypical box they've been trying to fit into their entire lives and into a life that embraces their highly sensitive nervous systems and aligns with their authentic nature. Shayna is a lifelong learner with a BA in Anthropology, graduate certificate in learning design and technology, and professional certifications in NLP, Integrative Somatic Parts Work, and Somatic Attachment Therapy. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is actually my first podcast ever. So I'm really excited.
Yes. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
We're very friendly here. So we hope that you have your first really good time on a podcast, and we'll send all those good positive memories.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I've done lives myself many times, but never been featured, on a podcast, to get my name out there and, all of that stuff. So I'm really, really excited for the opportunity that you guys have, presented me with here, and the whole, just being in the journey to secure, how that's going to really help, boost the work that I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start with a little bit about, I'm just want to say that I love IFS. I love internal family systems. I love family constellations as well. I don't, and they're not exactly together, but they can really work well together. And it's also the NLP and the Gestalt work. We were talking behind the scenes, and you're in for a good time. If you didn't already know, you're in for a good time, y'all. Shayna, I'd love to talk a little bit about maybe your journey. How did you get start here? In regards to finding yourself in a more secure place, because I know that a lot of our viewers are really again, it's called the Self-Love Show, right? So the place of feeling the insecurity of self, living in this society that tells us that we shouldn't love ourselves, and that being kind and compassionate to ourselves is should be punished. Like, there's a lot of different things here. So how did you get here?
Okay, so I've been in and out of therapy my whole life. Pretty much, that whole, I am neurodivergent. I'm, ADHD. I'm on the autism spectrum, and, highly sensitive, all of that good stuff. And so, I mean, from like an early age, there was this, I guess just, my parents were like taking me to doctors, therapists, like there is something wrong with this child. I mean, they were trying to help me, of course, but I think like, when you get slapped with a lot of labels, in childhood and you're constantly being taken to doctors, you kind of get the sense like there's something wrong with me, so that was definitely there. That sense of there is something wrong with me. My self-esteem was really, really low, all of that. And of course, so in 2016, I was fired from my job. I was teaching English as a second language. I did that for 8 years, and I got fired from my job. Basically, my manager could not handle my neurodivergence and my high sensitivity. I mean, they didn't say it like that, but that is what happened. And I fell into a deep, deep depression, and started looking for jobs. And, but during that time, I kind of started to heal. I found a new therapist, and she was the first person who ever told me that my feelings were valid, that it was okay for me to feel my feelings. And I was like, whoa, like for real? I mean, everybody's always been telling me that my feelings are wrong, so like to have this person validate my feelings. And I was in my 30s, my late 30s at this point. So 36, 2016, 35 or 36 at this time, and like I said, I've been in and out of therapy my whole life. So no therapist had ever told me that, before. Or if they did, I didn't hear it. Maybe like I was just in the right frame of mind to hear it this time. And I believed her. And that kind of is like what really started, I started getting back into my art. Then I decided to stop looking for a job and to pursue art as a career. And in this time, I had reconnected with a friend who really inspired me. Like, he quit his job to pursue writing, and he kind of inspired me to do the same, pursue my art. And anyway, we kind of clash a little bit, like in terms of our boundaries. And so through the conflict that I had with this person, I was kind of catapulted into the attachment work. I started to see that I was repeating a pattern with this person who basically, he's a wonderful person and we're still friends, but I am always feeling like I'm too much for him. Mm-hmm. And that goes with, my childhood journey, that I was too much for my parents. I was difficult. I was, a problem. So once I saw that pattern, that I was, like, oh my God, I am being drawn to people who will see me this way because this is the way that I see myself. And that really just like catapulted me into the healing work. Like I started following lots of people on Instagram, on Facebook, really started doing the work. I started doing shadow work, really got deep into my shadow, excavated that. But then I found myself doing a little bit of spiritual bypassing. And it wasn't until another conflict that I had with the same person that I fell deeper into this work and found the trauma, got into like the trauma healing with the parts work and, IFS, the trauma therapy, polyvagal theory, all of that, regulating the nervous system. That is really where I became secure. I thought that I was secure before, but I was really just I had like very wounded boundaries and I was spiritually bypassing, and I think that happens with a lot of people, they get to this point and then they, we keep going further into the work and deeper into the work. And that was basically the past 2 years that's been the real deep work that I've done. All of this, the parts work and really learning about myself, my parts, connecting to my parts and learning to regulate my nervous system, to the point where now, like I can have these conflicts and completely different result, like even if the other person is, dysregulated, I'm able to not react.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, I really want to acknowledge what you're saying. It's so powerful journey of like regulating your nervous system, regardless of what's taking place. And that's when you're healing, when the pattern shifts, because the other person is still going to be staying the same or showing up the same, but you're showing up in neutral inside. And I also wanted to comment on the curriculum. You mentioned your curriculum being like, I'm too much, there's something wrong with me. Like that was like in your childhood conditioning,
Yes.
It was showing up all through your childhood. So it's so true. What we experience in our childhood is our curriculum, and as an adult we have to go back through it and kind of sort through it and make peace with what had happened to us, and really sort through, do I really believe this about myself now? And because that stuff, those core deep beliefs of I'm too much, or I do it wrong, or I'm not enough, or whatever the conversation is, becomes the attractor field to attract the exact person into our life that's going to mirror that conversation.
Yeah. Yep. And that's exactly what happened, but it also helped me to, rewrite that story as well, because I could see like, holy shit, I'm not too much. I'm just too much for this person, and I could see, like, in terms of the people who I attracted into my life or who I was drawn to, that was a recurring pattern. It just was really clear to me. And maybe because of all the work I had been doing, being in and out of therapy, it just was really, really clear. And that helped me rewrite that story of being too much. Now, that doesn't mean I don't still feel that in my body, because I do sometimes, but I know it's not true. You know what I mean? So that's where I am at, where I'm at that point where like I still, and maybe I always will have those sensations come up in the body, but like, I know they're not true and I'm not fighting them. That's the important part that really parts work has really helped me with, to have compassion for myself, is that, as a neurodivergent person, I was constantly trying to fit inside a neurotypical box. Like I said, in my bio, And the interesting thing is embracing my highly sensitive nature, and that like just kind of not dysregulation, but just not average typical way of being. That is what helped me to regulate, by just embracing how I am naturally, instead of trying to fight it. If that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. So what I want to just like pin for everybody who's watching and listening is there's going to be a point, or when you're on your spiritual journey or when you're on your psychological journey, you're going to start noticing the patterns, that you are the most common denominator in all of these things. I'm going to speak for Dawn here. I know she's experienced it. I've experienced it. We talked about like, oh, this is the pattern again. Gosh darn it, and it's like, well, what's the trigger? What's underneath that? And then you get to start digging into the belief system. Now, I love that you're talking about neurodivergence, because I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. My therapist was like, have you ever like looked at that? And I was like, what do you mean? It's literally changing my life.
It's so common. It's really so common amongst people with insecure attachment. Like I just see everybody has it now. Like everybody's being diagnosed with it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah. So what happened is that I got on some anti-anxiety medication because I was having like these conniptions. I was just like connipting and being like, I'm actually not, like, nothing's bad here. Nothing's crazy. And I would just have these like conniptions where I'd melt down over literally like the heat. and so I got on this anti-anxiety medication and was like, oh, what's underneath that? I started feeling all the feelings that it was all anxiety. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see. I'm going to mute for a hot second because it's a little loud. That I started to see what was underneath it, and was like, oh my God, there's all this unresolved stuff. Now, I'd already been looking at attachment theory. I'd already been looking at like secure stuff and just like my own wounding. And what really, really helped me, and the neurodivergence piece or the neurotypical piece, like this whole piece, I started to really understand as I got into looking at social constructs or looking at historical, like I went through a couple racism courses and was like, oh my God, what is neurotypicality and what is not? So I believe that neurotypicality or neurotypicals, it's because we were studying people of a very specific genre, like the educated white man. And I was like, oh my God, we are all like being squared up to this kind of person. I don't know about you, but I run estrogen. I've got lots of woo all over the time. And then I have some stuff that like live, like some trauma that lives in my body. And then now I'm hypersensitive compared to a person who isn't really like, who's taught to be stoic, right? So neurotypical, or just regular human beings doing regular human stuff and learning how to get their needs met through strategies that we've learned. That's where I'm at in that.
Yeah. And I mean, I mean, it's, yeah, the typical, white male, avatar or whatever,
Yeah.
But it's also, what fits in the system, what makes the system work better,
Exactly.
What supports capitalism, what supports the institutions, what supports, I mean, people who don't really feel, and who, like subvert their emotions are easier to control.
Exactly.
I mean, how can a teacher, if kids are all, feeling and, like embracing their emotions, how is the teacher going to be able to control them? Like how is it's just, it support neurotypicality supports, just the institutionalization.
Yes. And I want to make a distinction because I think that like this idea of like the white male privilege is really like, men are getting like shit on a lot. What is this? 1955. Men are getting really like they're really getting like pushed on and have a lot of weight. And I want to say that I love men. I think men are amazing. And when I talk about this, it's really from a historical
Yeah.
perspective. I mean, I'm talking about historically, pre-Roman Empire to we're walking through how culture is developed or how government is developed, and I'm walking through like 1700s, and I'm walking through, you know, like the, you know, Plymouth Rock. I'm walking through all of these. This is what I mean by kind of that perspective, is that it wasn't the survival of the fittest, it was the survival of the most aggressive behavior. And so, and it happens in biology as well. So just to make that distinction, so our male viewers aren't being like, what in the F? Why on the planet are they being so mean to us? It's not about that. I know that a lot of you are doing your work, and a lot of you are really wanting to support equality in the world and where everyone's thriving. So it's the historical perspective coming. This is what I'm talking about. Just to make that distinction, I think it's important.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love men too.
I think we all love men.
Yeah.
We love you. We love women too, and trans and non-binary and all the things. We love humans. So just to get into a little bit more of the how parts therapy helps you to become more secure, and maybe explain a little bit about parts therapy, because I think that a lot of people don't really understand that.
Yeah. I want to. I'll start by kind of explaining the title, because it is quite a hefty title, like a very long one. When I saw what it looked like in the graphic, I was like, wow. So basically, we are. The reason why it's deconstructing the mosaic of you is because we tend to be blended with our parts. Meaning, like, you know, we will say, I am happy, I am sad, I am angry. You know, not like a part of me feels angry, or a part of me feels sad, a part of me feels happy. You know, we are just kind of blended with all of these parts. You know, I see every person as like a mosaic, that we're all just a mosaic of lots and lots of different parts, and that those parts make up the mosaic of you. And the way how this really helps me in my security is it, you know, it distances my, you know, I kind of like can look at these parts objectively by unblending them and saying like, okay, there is this part of me that's angry. And, you know, looking at that and looking at how that is a survival, you know, that part has, you know, adapted in terms of for my survival. So we have 3 different types of parts. Well, there's 2 different types of parts. There's the wounds, the exiles, and the protectors. But there are 2 types of protectors: managers and firefighters. The managers are proactive, meaning their job is to make sure that wound does not get triggered. So like perfectionism is a manager protective trait, you know, and its job is maybe to protect you from fear of failure, you know, or protect you from being misunderstood or seen, you know, as not good enough, you know. So that perfectionism adapts to protect you from feeling those fears, you know, those wounds of failure, of not good enough, of, you know, defective, whatever, that the defectiveness wound. Perfectionism is very common with the defectiveness wound. Like, you know, if I am perfect, then I'm not defective. So then the other protective parts of the firefighters, and they're reactive. So managers proactive, firefighters reactive. And they come up once you've already been triggered. So avoidance is a really common firefighter. Any kind of defensiveness where you're, kind of like defending yourself or criticizing the other person. Any kind of compulsive behaviors like gambling. Yes. Sorry, I was just, I was reading the chat and I got kind of distracted, neurodivergent me. But yeah, so how this helps me to be secure is when I'm feeling something, so in terms of my protective parts, I can say, this part, I can look at it and just sit with it and see why it happens, and then map the relationship in the system, so like we don't have as many exiles as we do managers and firefighters. And those can be connected to lots of different wounds. And being able to draw it back to the original wound can help you to understand why it, like how it adapted for your survival. It makes sense that way. So I have like one of a really common one for me is over explaining. That's a protective mechanism that, has adapted for my survival, over explaining. And it's interesting because the friend I was talking about before, it tends not to work with him. Like when I'm trying to, not trying to, but when I accidentally over explain. And the purpose of this, of course, is to make sure that I'm not misunderstood. That's the purpose, because that's a wound that I have, is being misunderstood. As an autistic person, and neurodivergent, people don't usually understand me. And so I have that wound, or the protective mechanism of over explaining that adapted, for my survival. Because if I over explain, if I explain every single little detail and I account for everything you could possibly be thinking in my response, then you can't misunderstand me, But what I started to notice with this friend of mine is that he, like, when I over explain, that misunderstanding that I'm trying to prevent actually occurs for whatever reason. So that's just like one example of a part that, sometimes, and accepting that this part, like this protective mechanism is just part of who I am. I mean, not part of who I am, but just kind of like, part of the way that I adapted. It's not something I have to like not do. And that's the big part there, is that like I can look at it and I can see its purpose. But like then if I have this inner critic that comes up saying, oh God, Shayna, you've been doing all this work and you still are over explaining, because that's another protective part right there, is the inner critic, telling me, that I'm like, that everything about me is wrong and bad. I can honor that part and say that, hey, inner critic, I hear you. I offer it compassion. This is really, all of this is really about self-compassion. Yes. It's about self-compassion, having compassion for self, but looking at this part and saying, hey, you little kid part, I see you. And, I hear you, because those parts, they want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to, like, once you see them, hear them, and you offer them some compassion, then sometimes they will just go down. they'll go down. When you honor them, you accept them, you allow them, then they will come down. But if you try to fight them, then, you're in a losing battle, because it's like, what you resist persists. It's just like, it's futile.
It's the ego's protection mechanism.
Yeah.
And just also say, the ego isn't bad. It's necessary. It's there to protect you. And those are the things. It's like, the parts of self. So the parts where we disown self, the parts where we like love self, like those bits and pieces. One of the things that I work a lot with in my clients is like parts of themselves that they have disowned. And I'm often inspired to, because this is my practice, I'm often inspired to ask them to name it. So my inner critic is, the millennial me jokes about this, is like, my inner critic is called Karen.
Oh, I name mine too. Yes, I give them names.
Yeah.
I give them names.
Thank you for your input.
I love that.
Protect me. I appreciate these things. You worked well when I was little, and you're kind of effing up my relationship right now. Now, we can have a conversation about it, or you can just skedaddle. That's okay too. You're welcome here, but I'm also not going to listen to you because you're not the hottest, most like vibrant, most safe actually voice in my head right now. There's another piece that knows how to deal with this, and you can trust my adult self to take care of this. Thanks, Karen. Bye.
Yeah.
Dawn, do you have a name? Like, do you have like an inner, do you have people in your head too?
I mean, I've worked with my inner critic a lot, and I haven't named her specifically. I mean, I've just been present with her voice.
I really just name them because it seems to humanize this aspect of self. And sometimes I just crack up, do you want to name it? And my clients will be like, name that part? And I was like, yeah, name your fear. What does fear sound like? Is it like, okay, Benjamin? And then you're like, Benjamin is now humanized in this way that it's like, oh, Benjamin's scared. Oh, okay. What does he want? Like, it's like this part of self, I'd love to see if we can have a little bit of this experience where we're looking at the parts of self.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited to do that. So what we're gonna do right now is I am going to take Dawn into her body. Now, she probably has a lot of experience going into her body, so she may not need this lead-in, but I'm going to give it to her anyway. And this is something that you viewers can do yourself, even though I'm, right here with Dawn guiding her through it. The idea, you can do this yourself. And as a neurodivergent, one thing that really helps me a lot is I will record my voice. Like, I'll record myself, kind of doing that lead-in, the guided into my body, and then listen to it back. Because, my brain does kind of go, all over the place. So it does really help to have that guided lead-in. So get comfortable in your seat. And go ahead, and I want you to just kind of not close your eyes yet, kind of just like look around the room and orient yourself in the room. So I want you to like feel the walls around you and see like what feels nice to look at. And as you're doing that, really, really connect to how that feels in your body. And then connect to the chair underneath you. Now you can go ahead and close your eyes and start grounding yourself. So feel the chair underneath you. Feel your butt kind of like pressed up against it and your feet on the ground. Relax your jaw and your shoulders. And start to just picture like roots going from your feet into the ground as you really, really ground yourself into where you're seated. And then just focus on your breathing, the rise and fall of your abdomen as you're breathing in and out. Start to connect with how that feels in your body. Feel the air as you breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Feel the air circulating, that life moving through you, through your body. Feel it going in your nose, and then down through your throat, in your lungs, all the way down to your diaphragm. And then when you breathe out, feel that air moving from your diaphragm up through your lungs, your throat, out your nose. Just feel that life circulating within you. And focus on your heartbeat as you breathe in and out. As we breathe in, our nervous system goes into that fight or flight. And as we breathe out, we go into that rest and digest, that safe zone. So with each breath in, our heart rate should increase. And as we breathe out, our heartbeat should slow down. So as your breath cycles through you, I want you to focus on your heartbeat and that speeding up and the slowing down as you breathe in and out. Really connect with those sensations in your body. You can picture yourself on a hill, on a bicycle. And as you're breathing in, you're going down the hill. And as you're breathing out, you're going up the hill. No, that's wrong. As you're breathing in, up the hill, and out, down the hill. So it gets harder and then really fast, and then it gets slower and ease. So breathe in and out. So as you continue to breathe in and out, I want you to think of something that's bothering you, that's been on your mind. And I want you to tell me a little bit about that.
What's been on my mind is I'm having a body issue that's really bothering me, and I can't get to the root of what it is.
Okay. So, where do you feel that concern that you don't know what it is? Where do you feel that in your body?
It's combination of like my chest and my belly. Like, yeah. Like
Okay.
my heart feels a little heavy over it, but I'm also just trusting that I will receive the answers. And
Okay. So go back into your body. Yeah. Just keep your eyes closed. And so I want you to just sit with that pain in your chest and your abdomen, and really focus on that. What, like, can you just like name the sensations that you feel?
it feels like a dull, like it's almost like a dull ache.
A dull ache in both your chest and your abdomen?
More my chest.
Okay. All right. So now it's in your chest. What comes up for you as you're focusing on this part?
It feels like sadness.
Okay. So it feels like sadness. And can you describe how that sadness feels in your body? Like as that dull pain? Is that's what you're...
It's a dull pain and the physical sensation of like I'm having a like rash under my arm that's just like, you know, I've been eating clean and Are you at the physical sensation of what I'm experiencing, or the physical sensation of the sadness?
The physical sensation of the sadness.
Mm. So the sadness just feels again like the dull ache, and it feels like a heaviness. There's a heaviness to it.
Do you get the sense that this part has a gender, like female or male or non-gendered?
Non-gender.
Non-gendered?
Non-gender.
What
Well,
about it in age?
if I ask it, it says female.
Okay. All right. Yes, definitely. That is what you want to do, is ask it these questions. As you know, as you are feeling into the part, you can ask it questions. It may not answer. Sometimes they don't, and that's okay. Sometimes there are protective parts that don't want you to go into that wound. And when those protective parts come up, you want to kind of take a step backwards and follow the protective part before you can get to the wound. So it's female. And what can you ask it how old it is?
I did before you inquired, and 13 is the age that I hear.
Okay.
I'm not sure why, but
You're not sure why. Okay. What do you remember about being 13? What can you?
it was
Yeah.
such a difficult time in my life.
What made it difficult?
Oh, my parents had been divorced a year, and it was my stepdad was in my life, and I was having a hard time accepting him as present in my life at that time. Fighting with my mom. School was hard. Like, there was a lot of transition and challenge at the time. Like, my parents not getting along, like back and forth between two homes. My dad had remarried my stepmother, and that came with a whole bag of issues, including four other people. You know, all of a sudden now I have a new family, and that was really, really challenging. And yeah.
Okay.
Starting to work for the first time, like I had a job for the first time, and
Wow.
just not feeling I didn't feel secure in any of my environments at all. Like, it was so conflicting, all of it.
Okay. So perhaps so you felt really insecure in all of your surroundings. Let's kind of try to apply that. See if we can apply that to how you're feeling about this rash or what's happening with your body, that that you have no idea what's causing it. Can you see a parallel between those feelings of insecurity that you had at 13 and?
Oh, definitely. There's a parallel going on, because I've been in perimenopause, and my body has made so many radical changes, and there's no common like denominator of, even though I'm navigating it well and I'm exercising, I'm eating clean, I'm doing all the right things, but there's still this place of like striving for a way of being in my body that I used to easily arrive at, if that makes sense. And
100%.
there's this place where it's like, yeah, I had to get on bioidentical hormones. I stopped taking the medication that she assigned me. I was taking this liothyronine, and all of a sudden I got this rash, and I did all these cleanses, and I was eating super clean, because I was like, well, maybe it's, yeast or fungus or something. So I just got to it and got really, really clean in my diet. And then I realized it's not that. And then I was like, well, what else could it be? And so I eliminated the medication because I was like, I just woke up like during Thanksgiving and was like, I don't need to take that anymore. I just got a clear download. I was like, I'm not taking it anymore. And so, but it's still there. It's still happening. So I'm just ready for the mystery to be solved.
So your life is kind of like out of control. Like I hear you trying to control it, like by, eliminating, eating clean and doing this and doing that, to try and like gain some control over this thing that you don't really have any control over.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in a surrendered state around my actual, like, I feel good about my choice for bioidentical hormones, and like I'm in a surrendered state of the change of my body. I'm not fighting it. That doesn't.
Oh, no. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I was just thinking about this part that, that has this environment that is unfamiliar. And it's wanting some sense of control, but it doesn't have it, and that's okay. That's okay, because
living with the itchy rash is not, it's hard. It's hard to deal with.
Right. I mean, we can want to control things.
Yeah.
And not control, you know what I mean? So I feel like this part that you're holding here, the part that is feeling sad, is maybe lamenting the fact that, you don't have control,
It's just not, there's no going back. You know what I mean? There's no going back the way my body was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear that. I feel like we have some resolution here. So could you, I want you to grab a pen and paper.
Okay.
And just draw. Don't think about it. Just whatever comes to mind, just draw. And then show it to us when you're done. So this part, just for the viewers, this part, it helps to kind of move that energy out of the body. So, we had this, resolution where Dawn is, connecting to this part, and she's feeling this sadness over the changing in her body that, there's no going back. And this extra step of putting the pen to paper, which you can do yourself. You don't need me to do it. You just kind of just draw that. It takes that energy and just moves it out of your body and onto the paper. So it helps with the processing of these emotions, because that's part of this somatic practice, is that we want to process those emotions so that they don't get trapped inside our body.
Do you want me to keep drawing, or is this good?
If it feels done, just kind of go with what feels right to you. If you feel like you want to draw more, draw more. If you feel like you're done.
For time's sake.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Awesome. So the circle is definitely, are you familiar with depth psychology? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you are. So what do you think? I tend to make suggestions, but since you have experience with this, why don't
I
you?
want to hear what you said, what you're going to say. Like, I'm curious.
Okay. I mean, just for me, I see the circle as like, the circle of life.
Yeah.
And that being the changing of your body is going through this cycle,
Yes.
of changing.
And
So
for our viewers, just for those listening, it's a spiral. I drew a big spiral with a bunch of hearts on the inside, like little tiny hearts all around. And I just was guided to do that. So,
yeah,
yeah.
and it makes sense.
It's
It
like
makes
different cycles of life, right? Like I'm in a changing of a big cycle and I'm moving from, mother, right? And I'm still a mother. I'll always be a mother, but I'm moving from mother to like, a different phase of life and like physiologically.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So what does it mean? Can you tell me what it means to you? I mean, you kind of just did, but
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, our life is, our life is always like a spiral. We're always spiraling in different, you know, we're growing, we're expanding, things are closing, chapters are closing as new chapters are beginning. Like it's funny. I doodled spirals all in my younger years, like all on the inside of my books and stuff when I was young and in school. I used to always doodle like spirals and like interesting, like that's how I doodled. So I was like, okay, well, the first thing that's come out is a doodle, a spiral. Yeah, but it's true. I think that I'm still processing sadness around, around just the change that's taking place. It's good. It's embracing it. Like it's not wrong or bad that the sadness is there. I think it's a part of the journey of the grief of what was, so
yeah,
that we can welcome what is.
for sure. And I mean, I don't know. I've never wanted to have kids, so I don't like. I mean, like not biologically. I've thought about adopting, but that's neither here nor there. So like for me, I can imagine that for maybe for a lot of women that going through that, it would be like, that part of childbearing like is no longer possible, and how that grieving that could be really, really,
Mhm.
really difficult, really traumatic, as women. I don't know.
Yeah, it's powerful. I mean, I did grieve a lot. Like I grieved a lot. I grieved that when I was in graduate school, even before my period had gone. I grieved. I grieved not having another child. So I feel like I did that work quite a bit, but maybe there's more. I'm welcoming. I'm just going to have a deeper conversation with this now and keep going with it to see what it surfaces. Thank you. Thank you. That is so insightful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being so easy to, I mean, it doesn't always happen that way. A lot of times what happens, even for me, is those protective parts come up, like they won't let you go in. And so you have to go backwards and deal with those protective parts before you can actually get to the wound, which is totally fine. And if you're neurodivergent, a lot of times what happens for me is like, I'll be going into the body and like, oh, I feel something in my neck. Then I feel something in my toe. I feel something here. It's like ding, 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 all over the place, kind of bringing me and just welcoming all of those sensations, following it where it wants to go, and then it will settle down and you can, lean into the parts.
Yeah. That was so lovely. And I think it really gives an opportunity for our viewers and our listeners to kind of see how parts therapy can be really integrative and really collaborative, and also a place where you can be seen and heard in your process. Again, the process of your own inner stuff isn't It might not. It might not look like an A to B, A to Z, just do therapy and talk it out. It might actually be, embodying something or speaking to or going through a process where you're kind of moving into the parts and really looking at those things. It might be art, it might be dance. There's a lot of different ways that people process trauma or process through their attachment styles or process through just even their thoughts. And so I love this parts therapy work, and Dawn for being so courageous and brave to just share so vulnerably. I love that this show kind of fosters that. And Shayna, thank you for your just wonderful way of moving and holding. Well, I would say your clients, but my friend here, like, it was so sweet. Thank you for being protective of my friend. And I'm feeling today. And I love that this just gives people an opportunity to kind of see what happens behind closed doors. Because I do think that this, when someone's like, hey, let's do parts therapy, it's like, what's that? So I love that this is kind of a sweet teaser, a sweet look behind the scenes, and an opportunity for us to even get closer to Dawn and to you.
Yeah. And one disclaimer I have to say is, because I have so many clients that experience this, and I want to say there is no wrong way to do this. Because I have, that's one thing, especially in neurodivergence. We are so much up in our head that I often have clients come to me who are just so busy figuring out, like, am I doing it right? And that's a protective part, in itself. But so in the expressive arts part, in the going in your body part, in the what you're feeling, there is no right or wrong way to do it. So if you find yourself trying to figure out, like, am I doing it right? Just kind of try to sit with that part and be like, okay, I see what you're doing here, and then just kind of lean into the process, because you can't do it wrong.
Love it.
So true.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the self-love. And I've said it a zillion times that my idea of love is the radical acceptance of what is. So for me, self-love is to radically love the self as is. No changes necessary, but it's helpful if you want to communicate with other people.
For showing up so vulnerably with us, Shayna, and sharing your work and explaining parts work so beautifully and facilitating me. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about where to find you and about Journey to Secure.
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm not really very active on Instagram right now. I kind of got a little bit burnt out with the whole social media thing. But you can send me a friend request or follow my page, Return to Love. That's the name of my business. And you can find me in the Journey to Secure. I am so excited to be joining Philippe and so many other amazing facilitators in San Diego at the end of January. I think the 24th to the 29th, I believe. I'm going to be teaching. So the title of this Deconstructing the Mosaic of You. This is a class that I'm going to be teaching at Journey to Secure. So it's the name of the class. So, and I'm also going to be teaching a class on boundaries. So yeah. And thank you both for having me here. And I also want to just say thank you for the wonderful compliments. I have a part that wants to let you know that I was feeling like I did a horrible job explaining this because of all of the vocal fillers, the and so thank you for that part wants to be seen and known, and thank you for the validation.
You're welcome.
perfectionism is a man-made concept. So all of you is welcome here in all of your you-ness and all of your truth and all of it. There are rarely any mistakes, I think. So you are welcome here, and you did fabulous.
Thank you so much.
Dawn, would you like to share?
Yes. So for those beautiful ladies out there seeking a greater connection to self-trust, right? Or explore where trust barriers have been in your relationships, or there's been issues with trust, or maybe if you've been like me, where you arrived on the planet and you had very difficult curriculum from the jump. I'm a child abuse survivor, and you've had, trust has been your main theme in your life, and it shows up in all your relationships. There's a beautiful Facebook group I created called Reclaim Your Trust. And it's really just a gorgeous place to have your voice heard, meet other beautiful women. There's lots of tools and resources in there for you to get support around greater trust inside of yourself, because ultimately it's your relationship with spirit that matters most. And trusting life is where it's at. So, right. We all want greater trust with life. That's it, right? Life is happening for us. So that said, please come join us.
Yes, just hop on over and hop on over. I'm also going to share a little something that I'm up to because, well, I haven't been sharing a lot about it, but I am not an attachment theory program, but it is called Self-Secure. And it is the culmination of all the tools that I've gathered over the last 15 years. That looks like Gestalt and holotropic breath work, as well as embodiment practices for trauma healing. And it also looks like, it just looks like really amazing tools to find yourself leaning into your own self-sourcing and dissolving your own inner codependency. And you can find those right here. I really want to thank Roy and Russell for being epic virtual assistants. They're doing a lot behind the scenes. I know you can't see it, but we can. And maybe you do see it, because all of the things that you do see, like Shayna's amazing graphic and emails and who communicates with you, that's all them. And I just want to shout out and give them big love to their family and to their sweetness. You're wonderful. Thank you. I also want to say thank you to Scott Katanis, Love Coach Academy, Global Peace Tribe, and the Sign Network for, really holding us in space, in this space, because this is a lot of work. And you hear and support and show up for all of the us stuff. So thank you again for sharing us out to over 44 pages today, and for making it really possible for us to be seen and to have reach. So thank you. And special thank you to all of you who are listening and following and liking and sharing and commenting and downloading on the podcast. All of our viewers and our listeners, thank you so much for your consistency and for your love. And thank you for doing the work. This is hard work, and you're doing it, and you're freaking amazing. So celebrate you, because you're rock, and we will see you next week. Same place, same time.
Have an amazing week, everyone. Thank you again for